Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of OHKO, a Pokemon VGC podcast. Another regional done, and yeah, great stuff. Great intro. Really crushing it off the bat here, not gonna lie. Sierra Dawn, joined by Joe Brown. I'm actually only joining in for the first tiny bit of the episode. I've been super busy lately, but then you're gonna have a special guest, Pengy Stefan Mott, to join Joe Brown and chat everything about Vancouver.
Yeah, we're listen, any amount of time we can get with Sierra during her busy schedule, her busy times with casting and everything is time well spent. So, we're happy to have you for a couple minutes for us to start the show together, have a quick little discussion. But yeah, then afterwards, Stefan and I are going to have a very interesting, very fun conversation together. We kind of do little paradox action, Sierra. We talk about like the future, like what he's looking forward to in future events. So we talk about the past, like some of like his former regional win. Like we're fully paradoxing up in the conversation. It's a good time. You should listen.
All right, I'll make sure to listen. I feel bad that I can't join y'all. So people might be like, "What type of busy schedule?" Well, I was at Vancouver. I'd broadcast leading up to Vancouver. I go to Vancouver. I have never red-eyed home from a regional before at all. Like, I've always had the Monday free. I'll normally leave a smidge later on the Monday unless the flight plan sucks. I actually red-eyed across the country Sunday night to then take a 5.5-hour-long bus ride to get home so then I could be on broadcast. I got like home like 30 minutes before being like live. They had to check my camera and all my stuff. I'm like trying to do all the checks while like trying to put like some semblance of like makeup on or something. And then yeah, since then, I've been on every day of broadcast. By recording this, it's Wednesday, so 3 in a row. Live again tomorrow, Thursday. Live again on Friday, and then weekend off, and then another full week. So it's, yeah, for anyone's like, how busy? You just got home? Not at all. I'm drowning right now. It's when you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. But like, exactly. I also need sleep. So
yeah, no, definitely there are just in the commentary world there are peaks and valleys, right? Where it feels like, oh my God, I haven't done anything for 2 months, and then oh my God, I can't catch my breath. all in the same cycle. So it's just totally understand how it goes down. But I was not able to attend Vancouver. I was watching from the comfort of my apartment. I thought you guys did a great job all weekend. I was kind of in and out on day one. I was doing some other things or in some errands, but I was locked in all day 2 watching the Swiss rounds and all of Top Cut. But you were there in person, so how was it? You returned to your homeland of Western Canada. Hope you had a fun time.
Yes, I always call Vancouver and Toronto both my hometown regionals because I live out near Toronto now, but I actually grew up near Vancouver. They're like closer to Vancouver than I actually am to Toronto. So going back there is always like going back home. It was nice. It was nice. So I wish I could have stayed out there longer, but my sister and my brother-in-law ended up coming out to their first Pokemon event 2 years ago. My other sister, my mom and my grandpa came by. This time, my other sister. So they got there really late, and we had a really fast broadcast because every single match except one ended in a 2-0. So they missed me casting, but that meant I actually got to like go and hang out with them. And then we got like some 3 p.m. Korean barbecue. So like it was cool. Vancouver is rainy as always, but Vancouver is always such a fun time. I always have such a fun time. And also like got snacks. Shout out to Rose and Gabby. They got me a bunch of snacks when they were out shopping because I was having a rough weekend. So right now I'm eating the Pokemon gummies that they got me, and like they're so cute. Like
I love it.
It's just like the tiny little Pikachu. It's terrible, but no, it was a fun weekend. Fun cruise, fun time, good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell you guys were all having fun, and Vancouver is definitely it's somewhat logistically difficult for players to get to, understandably. It's in a different country. It's far, it's a lot of the population's on the East Coast, and you're going east to west. So the player numbers is lower than some of our other regionals that we have, but like the Vancouver vibes are just always immaculate. Like going back to 2022 with Daz and his broken arm and he couldn't put a suit on, and Scott having to come out of the bullpen in the emergency to fill in because everyone got sick, right? Like every year since 2022, Vancouver always has fun stories for the commentary team. So it's always
that wasn't a fun story for me that year though, because I was one of the ones
you
that
were
got
one of the sick ones. Yeah,
the great COVID incident of our half of our team being taken out after Secaucus Regionals.
Yeah.
Forget.
Just built different, you know? I was on my home territory. I couldn't get sick. That's what it was.
Yeah, I couldn't go home because I did get sick. Never forgiven New Jersey for that one. That's all I'll say.
Is what it is, you know? But yeah, I was like sad I couldn't make it to Vancouver because I've been a couple times, but it's such a gorgeous city, a lot of fun like restaurants and everything. But for the Pokemon action, from your perspective, how did everything feel? Because like it's great, congratulations to Bezod for the victory and Lunala getting the first win in 3 years for a Lunala team or whatever. But like there were a lot of lesser known players. Maybe that's an aspect of less people attending the events or whatever. But that top cut was like 24 people, and there were a lot of lesser known trainers that performed well.
Yeah, when we look at day 2, like it definitely wasn't for a lack of big name players out in the field. It was just when we looked at like the entire tournament run, them getting knocked out at the winnage or at like the first beginning part of top cut. So there was less players, and there ended up actually only like being one less round of Swiss on the Sunday because of that. It was 10 instead of 11. But it's always interesting, like when you're looking at like some people and their ability to travel, it's not really that great. Or like they'll be like, okay, I can only go to 2 this season, and they don't do well 1, so we don't actually like get acquainted with their name. So there actually is a lot of like decently strong trainers we just don't know yet. So it was cool to see that things were different for Vancouver. It's like you always love to follow like the same storylines. Like it's cool when it's like this is the most stacked top cut at all time, but when you're looking at people who have traveled far that we haven't known, people that are local, people that are popping up with this restricted that we've all written off, like it's cool in a different way. So the only thing that sucked about the weekend is the fact that like it would have been nice to have 3 game sets, but like that's beyond that. I thought it was really fun, and to be this late into Regulation G and have Lunala win of all things, Lunala.
Like, I mean, hey, OHKO was kind of ahead of the curve. Now, yes, it's totally different variant with the expanding forwards. It's not the Combine Lefties, screens version that we had, but we knew there was the potential. The voters of the OHKO community, they understood that Lunala had a chance.
Ever since Reg G came back, every time one of my friends is like, oh, I don't know what to play, I always link them the Lunala OHKO team.
It's such a good team.
And every time they make fun of me, so then I was just like, well, maybe if you guys looked at Lunala, like, it could have been.
Yeah,
but
that's why we're calling it now that Zacian's winning Atlanta, since that's the restricted we're building around in the Discord right now. All unsuccessfully, right. Unfortunately. Pour one out for Galarian Zapdos. He's in fact not the sauce that I was hoping it would be. It like destroys things, but like like a lot of Pokemon have Protect. So you just +1 Brave Birds. We're gonna OHKO everything in the format, and then they just protect them. And they get knocked out on the response. So it's a little fun. We got to go back to the drawing board on the Zacian team, but I'm just saying, if OHKO was if we were on the Lunala train before Vancouver, like Zacian might put your money in on Zacian for Atlanta.
Good reason to join the Discord. You can find out what restricted is set to win 6 months down the line or anything like that. Also, I guess the Discord's doing a draft league now. Like we didn't really get a say in it.
Yeah,
we got told that we're doing a draft league.
That Sierra and I are hosting a VGC draft league within the community. And some of the memes from that was like really good. It was really good. Like Joe and Sierra coming back to Discord to find out they're hosting a draft league. It's like the community with the pizza and the fireboxes and everything.
There's like their draft league. No, our draft league. Draft league. So yeah, that's a fun time. Another reason to be in the Discord as well. Before we dive into, well, I guess before you and Pengy dive into the episode as well, whether people stuck around to find out what next week had to offer, obviously, there's a couple of extra eyes. The fact that Wolf had joined us last week, so grateful for Wolf and his time. there's a lot of great insight there, and we do want to thank you all for all of the support. Obviously, a lot of people came out for Wolf, but there is some people that subscribed, that stuck around, and a lot of really kind words. So thank you a lot on that. That was really nice and really cool. And hope that you get to enjoy this episode and all the expert Vancouver analysis that Joe Brown and Pengy have.
Yeah, I think just, to mention that our community is always growing, right? We're always trying to get a bigger stake within the competitive Pokemon community, and having Wolf on is just also like the nicest person in the world, to give his time. And he is such a busy person trying to make the Toronto video, trying to make the 2-hour Worlds video, and the amount of effort he does for the community to be able to give back to us, to a small little podcast like ourselves, has been really nice. The positive message we've received over the last week. Let's hope we can continue that momentum in the coming weeks as we come to the close of Reg G over the next couple of weeks. Move on to our next format. Hopefully, we find out what our Worlds format is going to be soon. That would be a cool conversation to have. But yeah, I know you're busy. I know you gotta get you gotta get some sleep because you got busy week ahead of you here. But any other things before we go back to the past with myself and Stefan?
Just again, thank you to everyone for the support. It was really nice. In Vancouver, I hid in the back a lot of the time. Like I said, I wasn't just feeling the great.
Did you bring your stickers?
When it was out, I did, and I got asked for one, and it's always very heartwarming. So I do thank you. It was someone who was newer. That it was funny because I'm so sorry because I forgot their name, but everyone was talking in the Discord about going to Atlanta. It looks like there's actually a lot of people from the OHKO community going to Atlanta, so that will be fun. But they had popped in and they're like, anyone going to Vancouver? And it was like cricket. So yeah, we had a giggle about that, but I got to meet them and they were very nice. And I got to give them a sticker. So again, I'm so sorry for forgetting your name. But yeah, the support, all the love. Thank you all so much. So yeah, have fun now with Joe Brown and Pengy for the rest of the Vancouver chat.
And we are here with the one and only Stefan Mott, just getting back from the west side of the continent. Probably had a long flight back. How are you feeling, bud?
Good. I flew through a lot of different airports because my flight was delayed by 4 hours. So a long flight is right. But we're back. We're home, and I get to hang out with my favorite Joe. Don't tell the other Joe.
Let's go. I'll take the other one's top 50 rising star, and shout outs to him.
He should be my favorite Joe. I'm sorry.
Nah, you got to support him in his climb right now. I got it. Guy goes to like rank 1 with every team, and he also can try to get rank 1 as a rising star. But yeah, I want to talk about Vancouver with you. Obviously, I've been a couple of times. I think it's a great city. But you did talk about the travel, and we just have to talk about it as East Coasters like ourselves.
Yeah,
that there's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. That Vancouver, for how beautiful of a city it is kind of a nightmare getting back home.
I had to go through Dallas, which is like, I live in Boston. That's the wrong direction. So that was fun. And then coming back, I was supposed to fly. So the flight back, there's a very nice flight back overnight, where you go Vancouver to Minneapolis, and then Minneapolis, great airport. They've got a Firehouse Subs, S tier. And then you get on the plane there, you go to Boston. It's great. My flight was delayed by 4 hours. So they're like, well, here's some other options. You could fly through Atlanta. I'm like, oh, yeah, that sounds great. Like, you go straight to Atlanta. I can sleep on the whole plane. They're like, it's with WestJet. That bag you have, you'll have to pay $100 to check it. Like, this is your fault.
They're like, your fault.
Well, we've solved it. We have your flight path. You're going to fly to Seattle. I'm leaving at 11 p.m. You'll fly to Seattle, have a 2-hour layover, get on a plane at 1:50 to Minneapolis, where you'll get off at 5, have a 2-hour layover, get on another plane from Minneapolis to Boston, get home at like 10:30. Don't like it, but they've got great poutine in Vancouver, though.
Yeah, it's gorgeous city, great poutine, everything else is it. Yeah, I remember when I went back in 2022 for the first time. My flight out or flight home, it was like a 16-hour travel day. Like, it was just it was just unbelievable. And then the funniest thing when I went last year, so that first time I was like, I had to fly into Seattle and then Seattle to Vancouver, and then it was like Vancouver to Portland, and then like a 4-hour wait, and then Portland to Chicago, and then into Newark. And then last year when I went, it was just Newark to Vancouver, Vancouver to Newark, and I was like, did it get closer? Did we start making planes that can make this distance that they couldn't 2 years ago? Like, I was so furious at my, for my former self that had to experience that long travel.
Well, they're getting there, maybe.
Yeah, shout out to United. I guess they built a couple more planes and we're able to make it work. But that's enough about the travel. Let's get into the Pokemon. And you were playing in Vancouver. You get to travel around the world playing VGC, and you have a lot of experience with Regulation G.
Mm-hmm.
And I think your perspective is a little more, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you are a little more positive on Reg G than maybe some of the other top players in the game. So if I'm misremembering, I feel like you like
not.
What's your thoughts on it?
Oh, I hated it the first time though, Joe. So ultimately, I think the way that I've thought about it a lot, I boiled down my opinion to Reg G of this format is so awful to build in. Oh, it's so awful to build in. But it's really fun when you have a good team. So, like, I actually really like playing the format. I just hate building. So we're in an awkward spot now where I'm kind of bored of my team. So I have to build. So, ask me again in a couple of weeks. But I've been having fun. There's a lot of dopamine to be had by clicking Water Spout. It's great.
That's true. I mean, yeah, you are the Kyogre guy. You know what I mean? You all the way back to your original regional win, and throughout like pretty much every GS Cup format that we have, you're always repping Kyogre. Why do you have such a strong connection to the big whale instead of like some of these 135 speed demons out here? You're still stuck with the bulky whale.
So interestingly, I've actually used 5 different restricteds in Reg G just in the first one. So I built sort of the OG version of my current Kyogre team. It's 5 of the same 6 Pokemon for Indianapolis last year. I got top 16. It was pretty good. It had absolutely no matchup into Miraidon because nobody had a matchup into Miraidon going into that tournament. So I lost to Aaron Trailers. Miraidon ended up getting eliminated there. And then I was like, well, this team was cool, but it can't beat Miraidon. So, I mean, everyone's on Miraidon now, like, in the trash. So then the rest of the format, I didn't do that great. I did okay. I got points at every event, basically. But, like, I used Groudon at LA, I used CSR, I used Ice Rider at Worlds, I used a lot of different teams, but one of my locals, Chase Mateo, figured out how to make the team work with into Miraidon. He figured out the Miraidon matchup, and I really wasn't a huge fan of his build because he had Farigiraf on it instead of Zarina. Like, he had a couple of other things that, like, they don't break the team, but, like, they add. So the funny thing is, there's a lot of ways that people think you can iterate on the team. Farigiraf is a good example, where people are like, "Oh, if you do this, you add dimensions to the team," and then you play the team and you realize that you never click those moves. Like, the Trick Room mode just doesn't exist on that team. Like, you're never clicking it. So, like, he had a couple of those in there, but coming back in, I was like, all right, I feel like if he solved Miraidon, it's actually pretty good. So we worked together. We brought in Anthony Londrigan, another one of my locals who's had an awesome season. He's kind of had his breakout season this go around. And the 3 of us really put in a lot of work into optimizing, like, the minute details of the team. And now it is basically just, that original 5. And then back in Indy, I just had a Gholdengo to cover 2 matchups because it was a 5-mon team. Now it's a Rillaboom, which helps the Miraidon matchup. It does a bunch of other stuff as well, but yeah, so we've had that team. It's been really fun to play. It's been really successful. A couple of other people have picked it up. Chuppa ran it at a UIC. It's good. Honestly, it's one of those teams where, like, I'm a little surprised it's not a bit more popular, actually.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, excuse me, there's, like, a lot of value to it, especially for for the people who don't have the patience to play kind of the lefty's calm mind version of Kyogre, right? Because you're just one crit away from disaster. So I think it's a nice middle ground between calm mind lefties and Scarf. That like you're like, all right, I got Mystic Water, I'm gonna do more damage, but I have the rest of the team to support me. And the Zarina is really interesting because I remember back in Reg G 1.0 there was that Japan Nats top cut team that was a Scarf Kyogre with Zarina on it, and it had like a Power Herb Archaludon and stuff like that, like just in case Kyogre didn't have the rain up. And I think a lot of people might have thought that Kyogre was one note in that sense, but I think it has shown that it is a little more developed or a little more well-rounded this time around in Reggie 2.0.
Yeah, I think like the sort of lefties balanced team that you were talking about, like the OE team, has also had a lot of success. OE obviously top cutting Worlds, getting second at Birmingham, and even last weekend, Sableye able to get top 16 with that team as well. So like it's definitely proving that it has the staying power too. I used that team a lot right at the beginning of the year when I wasn't sure what I wanted to build. I was testing it, and I liked it a lot too. So I think overall, like both builds, they play so differently, but they're both really, really powerful builds. And then there's the Gavin Michaels version, which is more similar to mine, but it's a little bit less like in your face, and it has an Amoonguss and an Iron Hands. It's like, oh, the less offensive Iron Hands, like it still hits you pretty hard.
Yeah, and then you also brought up Gholdengo and the prior iteration of it. And when I was watching the stream this week, and they have a player interview with you, talking, about, I don't know how long ago they filmed it, but you said like Gholdengo was kind of like your staple, and like you just loved Gholdengo or whatever. And I was kind of surprised because I'm trying to think of like throughout Scarlet and Violet, and I know you had your Garganackle run, and like I feel like you're big into what's his face, Primape's
Annihilate, my guy.
You're a big Annihilate guy also, but then you bring out the Gholdengo as your ace.
No, but see, the thing that you're forgetting, Joe, is that those teams you just mentioned, they had Gholdengo on them. That Garganackle team had a Scarf Gholdengo, and that Annihilate team, my favorite iteration of it was my OCIC team, where I had Beat Up Mousehold, Annihilate, and a Weakness Policy Gholdengo. You could beat up the Gholdengo. It was great. And then in Reg C, I used Gholdengo with Talonchomp. I really liked that team. In Reg H, in Reg F, I used Gholdengo with Clefairy, Waterpawn. I used it in Reg E. I think in every single format, I have used a Gholdengo. I had it on my Worlds team, actually.
Wow. I'm so used to looking at the other Pokemon on your teams that I'm not really paying attention to the steady, consistent 9 to 5 Gholdengo, So like a player like yourself that really does make a lot of fun teams and a lot of different iterations on the formats, like how do you always end up with that safe spot with Gholdengo like that? Like, is it a comfort piece? It's like I always bring up the story that throughout the entirety of Sun and Moon, I never played an event that didn't have a Kartana on my team, just because it always felt like such a linchpin of how my team building strategies work. So is it like, well, since I'm already off the wall here, I might as well have something consistent and natural and meta with Gholdengo? Or is it just like, it's the glove, it just fits perfectly every time?
Yeah, so I think like ultimately, like I'm pretty good at playing setup based compositions. So like I really like Clefairy. He's always been a Pokemon that I have really enjoyed using. I think I'm on Limitless's top Clefairy winners actually. And Clefairy is really good with Gholdengo. I think like the way I approach building is never like, I don't ever think about anything except I'm building what I think is the best way to win this tournament. So like I never care about like how off the wall it already is, or like some of my teams are super normal. So like, it's just like whatever works the best. And I think if you look at a lot of those formats, Gholdengo is just really broken in a lot of really lower power formats. So like, like I think that the best Pokemon is a good way to win tournaments. So it's so good at just being like, if you're really good at the game, Gholdengo gives you a lot of outplay potential. So like if you feel like you're good, like better than most of the people you're going to be playing against. Like if my goal is to make day 2 at a tournament, I just want to be able to beat the day 1 people, right? That's the first goal. So like I could probably outplay most of the day 1 people if I've got a Gholdengo, because like you can't spore him. I had a guy at LAIC try to spore my Gholdengo. Like, like you just get to like check people a little bit. Be like, are you
Yeah, it's a
serious?
free
Do
turn.
you know?
Yeah. Do you know he's the 1,000th Pokemon? You think they were not going to give a broken ability to the 1,000th Pokemon? But and as we're sitting here, like I'm looking at your team and talking about Gholdengo, like there is some kind of a spiritual successor nature of Kyogre to Gholdengo, right? It is a Pokemon that has somewhat of a middling speed stat and can be run in multiple different speed tiers because of that. Can run bulky, can run fast, could be Scarf, could be Nasty Plot, like like how Gholdengo kind of has some of those same well-rounded or all-around aspects that the Kyogre has, being in that weird speed tier. So maybe like that's just kind of your playstyle. Do you feel like you have a specified playstyle, or is every team different?
It's a really funny point that I'd never thought of, actually, with the Gholdengo and the Kyogre. I don't really think I have a playstyle anymore. I think when I started, I feel like a lot of people will go through their phase where they have like, some people are like, I only play Trick Room, and then like some people are, if I get +6 defense, they'll never kill me. Like that was me. I'm like, I've got Corviknight with Roost, baby. I just like Spike. Like,
imagining Mickey Mouse at the low tables over here with his +6. Like,
yeah, like so. Like I used to really like building bulky stuff. I really like that play style. I think it's fun. I always really like playing Control and like card games. So like I feel like I love when that works. But at this point, I think I've become like a good enough team builder and just a good enough versatile player that I can just play whatever I think is best. Like if we talked about Reg H, I ran Garganacl Dondozo screens in that format. And then the team before that was Archaladon Rain screens with Mouse Ape with Sinistra. So like that's because in Reg H, in the lower powered format, a lot of those Pokemon, those like really, really stallish, like stall adjacent Pokemon, were just really good into the format. That was a great way to play it. And now I'm like, like everything just kind of dies to Water Spout. Like the hyper offensive, like the Tornogre hyper offense stuff is like a fundamentally like completely different play style, but it's just like, in my opinion, like the matchup spread on that team is absurdly positive. Like there's a couple teams starting to creep into the meta that are quite bad for it, but like San Antonio, my trio, we went 28-5 because like the matchup spread was just absurd. And I play the team because I thought it was the best team. And then, beyond that, it gets a little bit more complicated. We're like going into the next event, I'm like, well, it's not the best team anymore, but I'm already really good at it. So like now, like you start having to weigh like, is my comfort with like how much is my comfort with the team worth? So, going into EYC, I'm like, all right, there's a couple things now that aren't like super awesome for us, but like I now have like 2,000 games with the team. I feel like I can outplay that. It's still good enough. And even now, like I played my day 2 matchups in Vancouver were awful on paper, but I still won the first one and almost won the second one. So like, it's not the call anymore, but like it's still a very, very good team. I'm probably not going to play it anymore just because, it is falling off. And like, I'm kind of bored of it. But like,
I mean, after that many games, how would you not be?
Right. Like when you have like 3 events in relatively close succession, like it's kind of hard to find the time to change. Now we got like 5 weeks till Atlanta. I'm not playing Mons this week at all. Take maybe a second week, and then I'll find something new to do. It'll be fun.
Now I do, wonder because I imagine you've scoured the Pokedex and you've looked at every angle and every stat and every ability you could think of to give yourself the edge, like your Garganacl Dondozo team. Has there been a Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet that you just keep trying to put on the builder and it just doesn't stay there? Like you keep thinking like there's potential to make this low kicks work or to make this Oinkologne set broken, but you just can't make it happen. Who is that Pokemon?
Well, until the fall, Garganacl. So one of the funniest things, I think I tweeted this out. I've told this story in maybe 1 or 2 places, but Scarlet and Violet drops, okay? It's December of 2022. I'm talking to my friend Tekka, and we're just like, oh my god. We don't have a rule set yet. We don't know what the rules are going to be. And we're in the builder, and we're like, Maranga Berry Garganackle breaks the format. Oh my god. We're building, like, oh, we're going to put, like, Kilowattrel's really good. Like, oh, what's this? Oh, Fluttermane. And then, like, 3 days in, we're like, oh, Maranga Berry's not in the game. All right. Well, they released Maranga Berry as an Ogre Oustin reward, and nobody noticed. And then, like, I had Helmet, I think, on the Garg, and I was like, this isn't doing anything. Let me just scroll through the items, and I was like, oh my god, it's in the game. I day 2 LAIC. I haven't talked to Tekka in, like, a year at this point, and I just sent him a DM. I'm like, I have a day 2 of LAIC with Maranga Garg, baby, and he's just like, what? So initially, Garganackle, Kilowattrel, kind of. I have used it a little in Reg H. I think a lot of those Pokemon did see play in Reg H. Zoroark was another one. I did bring that to a major. Overall, though, like, the funny thing is that, like, I don't try to build teams that are crazy, right? Like, I just build teams that I think win. So, like, this does end up on some of my teams, so it doesn't answer your question properly. But the Pokemon that goes into my builder the most and then leaves is probably Incineroar. Like, wow. Incin is on almost every team of mine at some point, and then for most of them, I'm like, it's pretty good, but this is just a little better for this team. And I think that there's, like, something to be said for that. There's a lot of these, like, super ultra safe picks, like Rillaboom, Urshifu. They're all good. But I think a lot of teams, people will, like, have, like, the splashable option, and it's good, but, like, it's probably something they could have done there that was a little better. That's kind of where Incin is for me. A lot of the time, it's on my teams, and I'm like, it made it on the Garganackle team, though, with Drain Punch.
That's all that matters, you know? Incin, he made the cut there. Yep. But let's talk about the rest of Vancouver here. So we spent some time on your team. And of course, we have to talk about Bezod's regional winning team. Congratulations with Lunala getting the first Lunala dub since 2022 when Gavin Michaels won with it in Vancouver. Oh, you know, those 3 years ago, how cyclical the game of Pokemon can be sometimes. And I know, I imagine you've tested out your fair share of Lunala teams and know its pros and cons. Did you ever expect it with all these heavy hitters like Miraidon and Cali Ice and Cali Shadow? Did you ever expect Lunala to win a regional in this format? I know a 2GS or 2 restricted, everyone loves Lunala as a secondary, but as a primary restricted, did you expect this?
So, no. So the funny thing is, Lunala as a Pokemon is, like, actually fine, right? Like, in this format, it's fine. But, like, it actually does, there's a lot of things it can do, but, like, it generally looks like it's usually just, like, not as good at something as something else. Like, you can run, like, Calm Mind Lunala, and it's, like, pretty good. But, like, might as well just run Kyogre or, like, Terapagos. Like, they're just better. However, can I blow your mind quick, Joe?
Please do.
Would you believe me if I told you that this is the second regional in America in a row that was won by this team?
Wait, what?
Can I let me put it to you this way? Roaring Moon, Urshifu Rapid Strike, Landorus Incarnate, Ogerpon Hearthflame, a redirecting support Pokemon, and a Trick Room setting restricted that has a really powerful spread move. It's the Tang team.
Justin Tang's.
It's the Tang team.
Okay, so that's a great piece to bring up, because I was going to pivot as we look at the team as a whole, not just Lunala, but everyone always brings up, like, the Incineroar Urshi trio, right? And I do think that, obviously, we know it's good, right? Because you just slap those 3, throw a Raging Bolt, Shadow Rider, and, you know, whatever, put Amoonguss in your last slot, and you have a viable team of 6. But I do think that there is a new core developing in Reg G 2.0 of Hearthflame, Landorus, and Roaring Moon together. That obviously Urshifu, he's hard to be a part of the core because he's on everybody's core. He's on 62% of the teams. It doesn't really count. But it might not make sense in the type chart wise, but Landorus, Roaring Moon, and Hearthflame as a little trio is becoming really strong.
It is, and I think like the way that this team plays, just to sort of like expand on what I was kind of like saying before as my bit, it is actually, when you think about it, like one of the reasons why this team is so good is it functionally plays very similarly to the Calyrex Ice Rider team that the Tangs were using, which is just a very well constructed team. The meta is kind of leaving behind that 6, but Lunala you can play this team in a lot of the same ways, but Lunala's offensive typing into the meta is just better right now. Moongeist Beam is so good as just a neutral hit, especially with +1 from Meteor Beam. And so while you have all these pieces that can play very similarly to this team that is already established, you also have just like the sheer amount of hate towards Rilla and Incin on this team is hilarious, because you're like, oh, okay, like Lunala Psy Spam, like what do you do against like Incin? What do you do against Rilla? There's a Lando and an Urshi and Meteor Beam on the Lunala. Like Incin is not having a good time here. And then there's a Terra Poison Lando, a Hearthflame, and a Roaring Moon for the Rilla. So like it's kind of interesting. I think that's really cool. And like you said though, the core of like Ogerpon, Lando, Roaring Moon is becoming really, really common. I think it's kind of interesting, right? Because Roaring Moon is, it's a Tailwind setter. It's fast enough that it is faster than anything that is not Prankster, but its defensive typing and stats are so good that, like, if you are fast, that's great. Like, you're already, like, this super fast Pokemon. Knockoff is amazing. Acrobatics is great coverage for a lot of the supporting pieces that Roaring Moon is trying to support. But the typing and the base stats make it way harder to remove than something like a Torn. Like, Torn is not that hard to remove from play. Roaring Moon is really annoying. Like, that thing, like, when we were labbing the Tang team for my team, we were like, oh, like, we can just click, like, we can lead Tornogre. It's, like, really favorable. We can protect, and then Hurricane, and then Tailwind Water Spout, and, like, we kill. No! It eats a Hurricane, and then a full power, modest Mystic Water Spout. Like, this thing's crazy! So, like, just having the ability to have such a bulky piece that both offers support in Tailwind and just pretty sizable offensive presence with Acro and Knockoff, even without terastallizing, Acro is still just a really good move. It can be a really strong backbone of a team, and then you pair that with Ogerpon Hearthflame that offers incredible offensive presence while also having access to Follow Me, and Landorus that just, those pieces cover each other so well offensively in the type chart, so you're not thinking so much about the defensive typing that you normally would when you're thinking about like a type core. But when you think about the offensive typing between like fire, grass, poison, ground, and then knockoff and like flying kinda, that covers a ton of options. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think it's really cool to see how like this format has evolved this time around, because we weren't seeing these cores back in August, right? So and with Lunala specifically, what really interests me with Bezod's team is this Psy Spam core, because everybody that was tweeting like, oh my god, Psy Spam won, it's like, let's calm down, people. This is when we say Psy Spam, this is not what we mean by Psy Spam, okay? We mean like Delphox or Armarouge or Male Indeedee or like, things like that. Like Lunala happens to have expanding force and there's an Indeedee on the team. Like this is not the Psy Spam, the Armarouge, Indeedee, Lilligant, Torkoal, Gallade.
This is not
like,
cheese. It's really well constructed team.
And when you look at the meta, so only in the top 12, so no restricted is a dark type, right? Rippy Veltal in the top 8. So you're not facing many dark restricteds. Only Incineroar on day 1 is a dark type that's in the top 12. And day 2 you have Incineroar and Chi-Yu. So it's kind of free real estate to just click +1 expanding forces as long as there's no Rillaboom on the other team. Like you go Moon, like I feel like you just not Moongeist, you what's it called? Meteor Beam, turn 1, just doesn't matter into somebody, you don't care, and then +1 expanding force for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's really, really powerful. I think one of the things as well, right? Like when you do like you mentioned, like the counters to this Psy Spam mode, there's not many of them. It's Rilla, kinda, Incin, Chi-Yu, and the amount of hate that this team has for those Pokemon. Like, if you're running Psy Spam, usually you're like, oh, I really hope they don't bring Rillaboom, but like,
Yep.
like this team doesn't care. Like, what are you gonna switch your Rillaboom in front of my Hearthflame? Have fun, Bucko. Like, and like, what? You're gonna bring an Incin? Just like, okay, eat this Meteor Beam. Bye. Like, same with Chi-Yu, and then like, none of those pieces can really apply. Like they can't really stop you, right? Because like you can lead the Indeedee and then just switch it out into the thing that counters the Rillaboom, right? And then you just bring the Indeedee back in. Like, okay, like you have so many pieces that could be used to exploit the things that theoretically counter the Psy Spam mode. And then, like you said as well, like there isn't much else that really likes expanding force. Like the horses resist it, sure, but like the Koraidon stuff that's really popular hates this. Most of the Miraidon teams, if you could get control of the board with terrain, and like even if you can't, you're forcing them to switch around if they're restricted, which they don't really want to do either. So like it's really good into both of the Miraidon, both of the bikes. It's like pretty solid into like Terapagos might be a little bit difficult, but overall like it's pretty good. I will say there are bad matchups for this team. Like this is not there are some teams going around right now that have really good matchup spreads. This is not one of those. This is a team that is designed to really beat down the popular teams. This is kind of like I feel like this epitomizes a meta call. Like it really is it's great into this one snapshot of time. But even talking to Bezod at Vancouver, there are a lot of matchups that they were really concerned about. They really, like, this team really does not like looking across from Kyogre. Like, both Kyogre teams look pretty good into this. Some of the really offensive Calyrex Shadow Rider teams, like the Smeargle stuff, Bezod was actually played against Ian Lee in top 8 and was pretty convinced that they were just going to lose. Like, they didn't really have anything for it. As it turns out, Bezod is just different and is just insanely good at the game. So, like, they were able to win anyway. But there are a non-negligible number of relatively bad matchups. I think the really, really bad one is the Screens Miraidon stuff. The only loss that Bezod actually had this tournament was to Joe. And I think I really just looking at that matchup, I don't see what Bezod can do to get through this. And, you know, they didn't have to. They lost to it and won the tournament anyway. So
Yeah.
I think, like, it's a really well-constructed team in the hands of a player that is capable of outplaying bad matchups. It is really powerful because you need more than that matchup advantage to win. But it is something that I would not be super surprised if this is one of those teams that, like, we look at for Atlanta and it's like, wow, there's a lot of people at 4-4 with this. So I don't know. We'll see if it actually catches on. But overall, like, it's a great build though, and Bezod piloted it expertly.
Yeah, I think what really surprises me with the team civilians, as you mentioned, Lunala is much more known for kind of that calm mind, slowly building up version throughout Regulation G. I know, like our Discord, we made a calm mind version as well with leftovers and screens and like just trying to make it as bulky as possible. And this one's like, no, I'm pressing the gas pedal. I'm ready to go. So Psychic Terrain, Extending Force. And what surprises me is, like, I feel like most people would not have built Lunala on a Psychic Spam team, right? Mm-hmm. Like, most people would have tried to make Necrozma Dawn Wings work, right?
Yeah.
With Weakness Policy and a bunch of Trick Room Mons and Torkoal and Amoonguss and, like, you know, maybe some of these other, like, maybe like Raging Bolt or something, take care of or to take advantage of the photosynthesis. Like, it's just, I think it deserves, like, the credit to, like, use the not as fully committed Psy Spam version of the Necrozma Dawn Wings by using Lunala instead.
Yeah, and I think that's something that is really interesting. I kind of alluded to this a little earlier where I said that, like, Lunala is generally considered to be a restricted that is fine, but other things are better. And people have the whole format just been like, well, it's fine, but if you want to run Psy Spam, just run Dawn Wings. Like, because Dawn Wings has a significantly higher special attack stat. It's slower, so it functions better in Trick Room. But Bezod identified that, A, Shadow Shield is just a better ability than Prism Armor defensively. Like, it's just really, really good. Like, that extra turn, especially on a more offensive team, if you can just make sure you live that first hit and then just eat this Psyspat, like, eat this E-Force, like, have fun. Like, that's really, really valuable. But on top of that, like, the additional speed in that Lunala has is actually really interesting for that Tailwind mode, and even just for the no speed control mode, because it has the same speed tier as Urshifu. So most Urshifus are adamant. If you have the ability to build this Lunala to be faster than those, if you so desire, or you can just opt to have it be a little bit slower and function a little bit better in Trick Room, because like fundamentally, this is not a Trick Room team.
No,
this is a team that clicks Trick Room against teams that are like Tailwind teams or faster teams, right? Like, so the additional speed on Lunala isn't bad in this case. It's actually quite helpful.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, you can also click Trick Room like against Trick Room teams, like to get them out of their advantage, like we saw against Alejandro with this Trick Room team in the finals. Really, really tense finals set between those two with the Ice Rider, Indeedee, Torkoal, Gallade, Smeargle, and Hatterene. And I think one thing with Vancouver specifically is we saw a lot of lesser known trainers, getting the spotlight, which is always cool to give them their moments, give them their shine and their start of their story building arc. And I always wonder like how a player like Alejandro just burst on the scene in this event, just completely popped off, and it's all just perfect timing. Like if he went to Atlanta instead of Vancouver, or if he went to San Antonio instead of Vancouver, like who knows if this team works out as well as it does for him.
Yeah. It's interesting. I feel like West Coast regionals as well are always like, they're their own thing. It's the people out there are weird. Like, you got the Bastiodon Mafia out there. Like,
yeah, love them.
You roll up to a West Coast regional and you ask any player, like, you have to have a team that is like anti-BS going into those day one rounds, because like they do some stuff over there. Like, and I think something that's really interesting is you can even think about some of these teams that have done well historically in those West Coast events. Like Zach Emerzian got second in 22 at Vancouver with Necrozma Duskmane.
We sure did. I was there. Yeah, crazy.
Like it's a weird magical place where, I mean, this is like, you look at this regional, all four of the top four teams.
One with Sun.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, you look at all four of these top four teams, none of them is normal. Like, they're just not. Like, these are all very, very interesting takes. Like, Chase's is like, there's 5 normal Pokemon on that team. There's an AV Incin with Flame Orb Ursaluna on a Miraidon team. Like, this is not normal. So I think it's really interesting because, like, I don't know. It's like the further you get away from Europe, the less influence you have of the balance pros. Like, you just get more and more insane. I mean, we saw Rock Polish Terrapicos win Japan Nats last year. I think honestly, it's like Europe is just like the epicenter of normality, and the farther away you get, the more insane things start happening.
I love that. I actually never thought about that. Like, for every time zone that you add on, the teams get weirder. You get one more odd Pokemon. And we look at the rest of the top cut here. As we look through, what would it be? 24 teams in total. It's a lot of Ice Rider, but like at the bottom of cut. Like not a lot. Obviously, 2 of them did convert into top 8. But, like, it's the Pokemon you expect, like Ice Rider and Miraidon and Shadow Rider. There are quite a large number of them in Top Cut overall, but they weren't the ones that necessarily, like, were able to power through like this Lunala team did.
Ice Rider really doesn't feel meta forward to me right now. Like, and Ice Rider is one of those Pokemon that, like, it definitely has its like peaks and valleys in its performance, because it does feel like one of those Pokemon that, like, when you figure out how to play into the meta, you get the mirror in finals in San Antonio. And then people are like, oh, okay, that's how people are playing Ice Rider. And then everybody adjusts, and then somebody comes along and they're like, Eureka! And then, like, it'll do really well again. So I think we're in, like, one of those valleys right now where a lot of those Ice Rider teams are kind of falling off. They're not, like, when people know what the Ice Riders are building, it's not that hard to like formulate decent matchups into it. It's really when somebody comes in with like a new Ice Rider team that suddenly you expect it to do really well. Something that a lot of people just kind of forgot happened was because this wasn't on the official circuit, this was in the VR tours. Right at the beginning of the year, Ice Rider was like gone. Like nobody was having any success with it. So the fact that we're talking about how like you expect to see Ice Rider on half the cut teams is actually kind of a crazy turnaround when you think about how bad it was like 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, if you look at the numbers here for Vancouver, day one it was 17% for Ice Rider, 18% for Miraidon as the number one Pokemon. But going into day two, almost 24.6% for Cali Ice. So that's effectively a fourth of the day two field went with the Ice Horse this time around.
That's
Funnily
wild.
enough, Lunala finally makes the graphic. It feels like it's always the same top 8 Pokemon, just like you just change the percentages, but Lunala makes the cut, poor Groudon gets kicked off.
Yeah.
But, like, is it time to expand our horizons? Because Sarah and I always talk about the core 4 of the 2 horses, Miraidon and Zamazenta. Like, those are usually probably 70% of the restricteds if you were to add them up together every event, right? Maybe 65-70%. Like, do we have to start being on the lookout for Crydon, being on the lookout for Kyogre, like having a better Lunala matchup?
So I do think so. I feel like I'm somebody that like as somebody that does not enjoy building in this format, I have scraped the depths of the barrel, Joe. Like, I've tried, man. And this Lunala team's really cool, but it's also a Pokemon that we all kind of thought was already, like, fine. Most of these restricted Pokemon that don't make it on these graphics, they ain't fine, man. Like, that you just die. Like, I came back in, I'm like, I'm coming off the back of, like, the Stolly Reg H teams. I'm like, I figured it out, baby. It's Ho-Oh, Tinglu, Araquanid.
Yeah.
Oh, and you just lose to the normal pieces. You're like, okay, like I'm losing real slowly, but like I'm dying. I'm like, oh, Cosmic Power, Eternatus, baby. We figured it out. You put Covert Cloak on it and Terra Dark, and you don't lose to CSR Balance anymore. You just lose to the normal mods. Like they're not good. Eternatus is a mon that, like, you could see people do okay with. We see it pop up every now and then. But it's like the teams that when you actually like look at those teams, are like, they're not that good. Like they're like really matchup checky teams, like Sludge Wave next to Tinkaton. Like, all right, it's aight. Like it's pretty good for an Eternatus team, but I don't really think that we could expect the horizons to expand much beyond this. As somebody who I've tested so much Eternatus, Ho-Oh, Lugia, I've tested Reshiram.
Oh gosh,
they're just not good enough. Double restricted, maybe, but like, even there, like, I'm actually very scared about the double restricted format.
Yeah, I don't think Ho-Oh's going to fare any better now that people can just put Kyogre in their second slot, or they could put the Meteor Beam Lunala in their second slot.
Yep.
I do
Poor
think
Ho-Oh.
like the GS Cups, they are the epitome of all Pokemon are created equal, but some Pokemon are more equal than others.
Yeah.
They're all worth one restricted slot, but some are worth more than one restricted slot.
But some are worth one restricted slot. Yeah, I don't think that. I do think that we do. Like, there's still definitely some development that can be made on the real restricted Pokemon. And in fairness, we didn't think Groudon was real at the beginning of the year. Like, it was fine. But like, so like, maybe something pops up. If anything, it'll be Eternatus. But it's my favorite restricted Pokemon, and I can't make it work. I do think that there's definitely some development that can still be done with Koraidon. I think the Wolf core, like the balanced backbone of Wolf's team, the Incinemungus, Koraidon, Sash Fluttermane core is good. And we actually saw it day 2 Vancouver with 2 other Pokemon in there. Carter made it with Gholdengo and Raging Bolt. So there is still stuff that you can do with Koraidon. And I think that's something that's always really interesting when Wolf wins a tournament with these parish teams, because they're never parish teams. They're really good teams with a parish mode. So, like, when he won Orlando, it was Palance before anybody else knew that Palance was good. And then he had a Screamtail and a Gothitelle on it. So, like, same kind of dealio here. There's a lot of different ways you can round out that core of, like, Life Orb Koraidon, Sash, Fluttermane, Flare Blitz, Ensign. One of the things that I've actually really liked about Ensign when I put it in my builder is I think Flare Blitz Ensign is really good in this format.
I agree.
But, like, you can't really fit Flare Blitz on most of the teams because you need Wisp. Because, like, the stuff that wants to run Ensign is, like, Pagos. So having a team that justifies Flare Blitz on Ensign, I love that. I'm already looking at that core. But I don't think we're going to see too much from the lower regions, the depths of the barrel. We're not going to see Mewtwo cutting an event. I'm sorry.
No, I don't think so. Definitely not. Even if you paid Wolf to run Mewtwo in Atlanta or something, I think the streak would be over at that point. He can't.
He's going to put a Screamtail and a Gothitelle on that team. He's going to win.
Yeah, I mean, hey, Ensign, Amoonguss, Screamtail, Gothitelle do amazing things together. You know, it works. It's gonna work out for him. But last question on Vancouver before we move on to our next topic here for you, Stefan. We gotta talk about the little ogre in the room. My guy, my good buddy, Ogerpon Cornerstone, being 20% of the field. And you know, Rosemary also loves Ogerpon Cornerstone. We talk about it all the time. We were the kid in middle school getting made fun of, getting shoved into lockers because, you know, we like Cornerstone, and all the Hearth Flames and the Wellspring fans were making fun of us. And look at us on top of the world right now, number one Ogerpon, more than Hearthflame at this point. And it's not just on the one type of Cali Ice Trick Room team. It's just a well-rounded, supportive, grass redirection Pokemon that can also crit Rock Ivy Cudgels, which is Rock's very great offensive typing.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on Ogerpon Cornerstone? Do you ever try to put it on a team? Like, what do you think is the best way to use it, and why has it risen to now the 7th most popular Pokemon non-restricted in the format?
I love Cornerstone. He's great. He's been on a bunch of my teams in testing. He's one of those ones that doesn't really make the cut all that much. Fun fact, it was on the very original version of the Kyogre team, like day 3 of the format in April. But fundamentally, I think Ogerpon Cornerstone, you outlined a lot of why it's so good. A lot of it comes down to Focus Sash is a really broken item. So if you can have another Focus Sash, that's pretty good. So you like having access to essentially a second Focus Sash, like you mentioned, Ivy Cudgel as a rock move is so good. Rock as a type is so good offensively that they balance it by making every rock move inaccurate.
Yeah.
So you have a 100-100 rock move with a high crit rate? That's crazy. It's literally just Stone Edge, but with more accuracy. It's wild. And then, of course, obviously, like, Follow Me is one of the best moves in the game. You're a grass type with Follow Me, which is really, really good. There's a lot of small things going for the Ogre. I mean, some of them aren't even that small, right? There's a lot going for the Ogerpon Cornerstone, but it's just like, it's a really good Pokemon. Like, it just has so many individual pieces that make it good, especially in a really high-powered format like this. Specifically, like, that Sturdy goes so far.
Yeah, I think, you mentioned the Focus. Like, Focus Sash is such a great item when you have it as an ability, and then, like, you're able to compound it, right? You think of, like, Assault Vest Ting Lu or something, right? You have an Assault Vest and an ability in the in the Ruin ability, and then you're wearing an Assault Vest on top of it. Like, you're like kind of compounding it. Or, like, you know, Hearthflame, you have a free +1 when you terrestrialize. Like, so some of those multipliers that people can use really work out. I just like that people are starting to understand it. Like, it doesn't have to be pigeonholed onto the same team. There have been times where I've one hit Raging Bolts with Ivy Cudgel and stuff.
I mean, Ivy Cudgel 1-hit KOs Kyogre with a crit. Like, it's very dumb.
Yeah, I love it. I love a little Rock Queen there. But all right. That's enough on Vancouver spot. We're talking in the future. We're talking in 2020. We're talking in 2025 right now. I want to bring it back. let's go to the past a little bit
Back
here.
to the past.
So we got a full paradox conversation going on. We're in the future, we're in the current timeline. Let's go back to 2020.
Ooh.
All right, the beginning pre-COVID, like a week and a half, whatever, 2 weeks before COVID, is the first time I met you in New Jersey, doubleheader midseason showdown weekend, where we had 4 events in one weekend.
That was crazy.
The craziest weekend ever. Shout outs to Jen. Just absolutely monstrous event. Hundreds of people there for that weekend. This was right the week before I made my debut in Collinsville, a couple weeks before the world shut down. And you were just this blonde dude in an esports jersey that was like some StarCraft guy that I met, and I was like, all right, cool. So let's flash back to like, what was Stefan like in 2020? Like, you're like, for our audience that didn't know you back then the way that I didn't know who you are. I knew you over time, right? Like, what was your life, man? Like, were you like were you playing StarCraft? Were you playing other games? Like, you had an esports jersey? Like, what was going on in your life at that point?
Yeah, so at that point, I was still, so I was the director of operations for an esports organization that had StarCraft, Heroes of the Storm, a couple other games. But like, I was still very entrenched in the StarCraft scene at that point. Like, I was professionally involved in the StarCraft scene. At that point, StarCraft was like, Blizzard had just pulled out a ton of the funding from StarCraft, and like the tournament circuit survived because StarCraft has such an involved grassroots scene that like people came through, and then ESL took over the tournament circuit. So like the tournament circuit was fine, but fundamentally my issue was they left the game on a patch that I found really unfun. And so they came out, I mean, like, they patched the game every couple months of that, like, up for like the first 10 years of StarCraft's existence. And like, this patch comes out, I'm like, all right, I don't like it. I don't like the way that it plays. It's kind of bad for my play style, whatever. And then comes that announcement where they're basically like, we're done patching the game, see ya! And I'm like, oh, okay, so this is my life now. I am playing this patch of this game that I no longer really enjoy all that much. So I had this conversation with Rosemary when I met her at an esports event that we worked together, just unrelated. And she was like, we were like talking over, we went to Subway. Our first lunch together was at Subway. We went to Subway. Nice. It's a very romantic destination. So we went to Subway, and she was just getting into casting. She'd been in Pokemon a little bit, but she was doing like her first WESG stuff, like Hearthstone and like some of this other stuff. And she was like, "Yeah, you should, like you should try Pokemon. Sword and Shield's coming out soon, and whenever there's a new game." And I'm like, "What is VGC?" I played Pokemon Coliseum I was a Pokemon Coliseum speedrunner for like 6 years.
Nice.
So that was my in with Rosemary. She had an Umbreon and Espeon handbag. So she's like, hey, that game's doubles. You should play like VGC. And I'm like, I should play what now? Like, what is that? She's like, it's competitive Pokemon. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I still did Pokemon speedruns, so I was already going to buy Sword and Shield for speedruns. So I'm like, okay, I'll try it. And so I played a little bit, and I was like, still under contract. I was doing all the management work, so I still did my job. But I'm like, hey, you should send me to some Pokemon tournaments. Oh, it'll be fun. And I convinced the org to send me to 2. But I was wearing the shirt at the doubleheader. I made top 8 at that tournament. That was my first top cut.
Yes, you did. Yeah, that's why I was always it's like, dude, this StarCraft guy just top cut our event. It's a big deal. So you're getting into Pokemon. You're finding your competitive spirits within VGC, and then the world shuts down.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So like, how was that process? That it felt like as you were building up your character, like you were building up your appreciation for the game, you could no longer travel to go play the game that you were starting to fall in love with.
Yeah, it really sucked. My momentum was actually really good when I started playing. My first major was Dallas. I went 5-5. It was fine. I'm a very competitive, hyper perfectionist person. So like even I went to a regional like a month after I started playing and went 5-5, but I came out of it and I'm like, I really should have played better. Like I made a bunch of mistakes. And then I went to Collinsville, and Collinsville, I actually went 6-3 at Collinsville, but my losses were I played Andrew Ding round 1, who won the tournament.
Who won the
and
tournament?
then I played
yeah.
Alex Arand round 3, who got top
top
4 at
four.
the tournament. So like those were 2 of my losses. So coming out of that tournament, I'm like okay, like maybe I'm like kind of okay at this game. Like, you know, maybe we can like grind it a little bit more. And then like, you know, everything's gone. I didn't play that much for a few months, but like, I mean, I still like enjoyed the game, but the motivation wasn't really there that much. But then like when the Players' Cups came out, there was like something to play for, which was a little bit more motivating. And yeah, I just like I over the course of COVID, I also kind of like I feel like I kind of just like, ran out of other things to do to some degree. So I was like, all right, well, I want some competitive outlet. So like StarCraft sucks now. So I guess I'll play Mons. Sure. It's fun.
Yeah, StarCraft sucks. I guess I'll Dynamax my Landorus every game.
Yippee! I like Dynamax, dude.
You're crazy, bro.
Max Airstream, my beloved. There's nothing quite like I think I played in Wolfie and A-Drive's tournament, that giant one they did. I wish that VR is great, but I wish we had like one event a year where it was just like some absurdly large prize pool that like you have like 4,000 people playing in like a double elim bracket or whatever. Like that was a really funny tournament. At that point, like I told you, I really like to build like this, like the pseudo Stully stuff. The most important thing for my team building was that I had to have a piece on it that would Dynamax and have Quake and Steel Spike to boost either my Corviknight or my Milotic. So I was running in that tournament. I was running like Hydreigon with Earth Power and Steel Spike on a Iron Head or a Flash Cannon Earth Power. I'm like, oh yeah, let's go. It was fun. I mean, it was fun. I like Dynamax. It made it really easy to kind of build with like a lot of, I don't know. I taught myself how to play Pokemon and I taught myself how to build. So one of the things that's like kind of, I think one of the reasons why a lot of my building is like really weird or like off meta is that there's a lot of like conventional wisdom that a lot of people like get as advice when they're starting the game. And I just like kind of never got that advice. So I built my entire thesis of like how to team build without those conventional wisdom pieces. Cause I just like was like, oh, this is good. This is good. This is how I build. So if you look at my teams, a lot of them don't have fire, water, grass cores, like stuff like that. Like I put the last time I used Instant, it didn't have a pivot move. Like I just build what I think is good. So I think Dynamax though, like made it like there were so many different ways you could build teams in Dynamax formats that I think that kind of like that's probably also part of why my team building is so different, because like all of my fundamentals and building blocks come from building Dynamax, which is like not really true for very many people, I feel like.
Right. Yeah. And so, you know, your formulative years of VGC are through COVID and playing in Players' Cups and streaming online and things, and then you finally get back into it in 2022 and we have our live events. Walk away with that Milwaukee Regional Championship. What was that, like your fifth Indy. I'm dumb. Whatever. They're both in the Midwest area.
I think it was my fifth regional, yeah.
Yeah, so like that's what I'm saying. Like your fourth or fifth regional, whatever it is, like you're another. It seems to be happening way more more often now of first or second time event winners. But like you were one of those type of players. Technically, I know you had played 2 years of COVID, but like it was only your fifth regional. But I mean, it's the same thing. Tang played 5 years of Draft League and then goes to his first event and wins.
Valid. That's
kind of the same thing. So, what was that roller coaster like? That you were still a new name, but like you took out Paul Ruiz. That's a world champion. You know what I mean? Like
we've
got Jeremy Rodriguez, an IC champion.
Like we've talked about this a little bit. We're gonna get a classic Joe reaction, I'm sure, from because like we've had this moment before where I don't think I played well that regional. I don't think I was a good player in 2022. I look at those games and I'm like, wow, why did I do that? I threw a game of finals by playing no line, by just being like, it'd be funny if I Dynamaxed Instant here, and then I just lost. Like, I don't think I played very well. So like, and even coming out of that tournament, like there's like I remember having a conversation with one of my best friends, Chalky, and I was like, yeah, I don't think I played very well. Like even in 22, I'm like, I could have played way better. Like I think like there's a lot to improve on, and like I think now, and I've told you this at several events at this point where I'm like, oh yeah, I
Mhm.
played this event, I played so much better than Indy. Like, and I feel like consistently now I'm playing way better than I did at that event at like every single event. Part of why I'm not winning is that the scene is a lot better now. Like everyone's playing better, but I think sometimes you just like you hit like I had like 3 months on that team, and like I had the meta call that team, but not because I built the meta call. The meta just like shifted very favorably for my team. So it's like, oh, suddenly my team is just really good, and I have 3 months on it because I've just been playing this team for 3 months. And then like I hit my matchups. There were a couple teams in cut that were super bad for me, and they all lost. Like Underhill, I think, and Burns were on like something that was like a really awful matchup for me, and they just died like one round before they would have played me. So thanks, Jeremy, appreciate you. But like yeah, there are, I think, especially when it comes to like one-time champions, like first-time champions, like a lot of the time things you can win a regional if you're a good player and everything goes right. That's why like I really want to win a second regional, and a lot of people really want to win a third regional, because at some point it's like I didn't win the lottery 3 times, right?
Yeah.
So you can kind of prove to yourself more so than everybody else that it's like, yeah, no, like I'm just good enough to do this. Like this is a skill thing. I played my way to this position and I was good enough to win, as opposed to like, you know, it's cool that I won. I love the team that I used. I had a lot of fun. I think that some of the building that I did for that tournament was really like top notch building. My Incineroar build, my Rillaboom build were both really, really top notch. Like I ran a relaxed Incineroar with 20 special attack EVs to like break subs on Zacians to like make like there was cool stuff on that team. I ran no fake out Rillaboom because I knew everybody would just respect fake out. Like that, there was some cool
Yeah, it's
stuff.
something you can't get away with now, right?
No,
With
not at
cheat
all.
sheets. Yeah.
But like the play itself, I feel like could have been significantly better. And I think like I am like a hyper perfectionist to my play. Like I'll come out of events that are, like I'll get really like I went like 10-1 in sets in San Antonio, and I think the post-mortem I did in the Small of Garden Discord was like 8 out of 10.
I don't know. I think you're hard on yourself, which obviously like top players have to be at that point. But like, I think you should look back a little more fondly on Indy instead of just like, oh, I could have played better, or I played better now and lost. Like you had the cool, what was it, like the hyper beam, right, on Kyogre, right, with Max Strike. That was an awesome tech that people weren't ready for. Like, I think maybe instead of like just being like, because I imagine, I'm not in your head, but I imagine if it's like, I feel like such a better player now, but I won an event as a worse player, like, why can't I swap the two or something, right? I imagine that goes through your head.
There's definitely something there, right, where it's like, it does get really frustrating when you're like, when you know that you're capable of something and you're not accomplishing it. Like, one of the things that's really frustrating for me right now is that, like, when I go on socials, you want to project a positive image, because nobody wants to read the whining post like, I just lost at a regional. Wah. Nobody wants to read that. So like, I'll go out, I'll post like, oh, I made my 7th day 2 in a row, and like internally I'm like, why can't I win it in for cut? Like, so it's like, it does get like, so like there is that aspect of it, but I don't know. I think I do really I think very fondly about Indy. I love that team. Like Sableye is the guy that I built the Incin with, and so like every now and then, some like I feel like a lot of people go through like the moments where like you have that self-doubt moment, and like Sableye has been popping off recently. He just top 16 Vancouver, super proud of him. But like, a couple times when he's been feeling a little bit down, I've been like, brother, you made me an Incin that won me a regional. Like, so like, it's a nice bonding thing to bring up with friends every now and then. Like, Borgie is another good friend of mine, and he wasn't really involved in the Indy thing, but like every now and then Borgie comes up with a psychotic line that just makes one of my worst matchups like pretty good. Like there's a couple Borgie lines on my current team. So like, it's I think there is definitely like a lot of positive stuff that I take from those past tournaments, even if I'm not super thrilled with like, I could have played better, or like I wish the result was better. But yeah, I don't know. I definitely I see what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you. But it's one of the other things is that like not being satisfied is a very good motivator to push yourself to improve more and to shoot for better heights.
Yeah, for sure. That's what the tops of any type of game, right? Like even people that win, like like I always, like, as a Yankee fan, go back to Derek Jeter quotes, and he said like the joy of winning a World Series was because you didn't lose, not because you won. You know what I mean? Like that's how elite athletes.
That's such a bad way to think about it, but I resonate
that's what they do,
with it though,
right? That's
like,
what they do.
Like,
That's
I don't like the
feeling. It's not a feeling of celebration. It's a feeling of relief that you don't feel worse from losing.
That's so true, though. I did an interview with Devin Corp recently, and one of the quotes I'd forgotten. It's like, so we just did a call, and like I forgot some of the quotes, but I was reading it today. Finally, I got around to it, and there was a quote that I kind of forgot that I said. That he asked me, he's like, yeah, like, do you have any like really favored, like, what are your favorite matches to like what great tournament wins do you have? And I'm like, I don't really remember tournament wins that much, because like if I play super well, I'm like, all right, that was the job. Like it sticks with you more when you're like, wow, I played bad. I need to not do that again. So, it's being hyper competitive is definitely like it can be a struggle.
Yeah, for sure.
I think especially like one of the things that for me is like I'm a perfectionist. So like when I watch players like Marco Fierro or like Wolf, it's like if they can be this consistent and that good at the game, then I should not be satisfied until I reach that level. So I like that. Like it's not super healthy to compare yourself to other people, and like, but it's also not correct to be like, well, Pokemon is a really volatile game and nobody can be consistent, because they are consistent.
They are
right.
consistent.
So
yeah.
like, I would like to be there too, so I work hard.
Yeah. Well, it was nice to have a little walk down memory lane. But let's get back to the Pokemon news here. We have a couple of things to cover before we close the show out and end with our question of the week.
Of course.
But first up is going to be the news on the Ace Trainer Rewards. This is something that the Pokemon Company had announced last summer, that there would be incentives for players to participate at live events that were not just championship points. And a lot of people said, how are they going to make this work? And the system is Ace Trainer Rewards. So I'd love to get your thoughts on this. They have a release they made a statement on Twitter and then it goes to their website. So the Ace Trainer Rewards program celebrates trainers who participate in tournaments in CP earning regions and operates on the CP threshold, meaning there's no limit to the number of players who can earn rewards. For the 2025 season, these rewards include a Play Pokemon stamped celebratory fanfare, Pokemon TCG promo card previously exclusive to Asia, and exclusive deck box and card sleeves in Pokemon TCG Live. Celebration Fanfare has been going on since 2021 in the Asian markets exclusively, so that'll be nice that we start to have access to it. Pokemon TCG, VGC, and Go players can earn Ace Trainer status by earning 200 championship points, and a set number of Pokemon Unite teams from each regional zone will earn Ace Trainer status based on their CP leaderboard standings at the end of the season. Now, if it just ended there, Stefan, we're like, all right, cool, cute little card. I get a physical reward for playing this game that I love. Awesome. There's one last paragraph. Due to logistical constraints, trainers in Latin America are currently ineligible for the Ace Trainer Rewards program. We are committed to supporting our global Play Pokemon community and have to continue evolving the program for competitors all over the world. Stay tuned for more updates in future seasons. So I don't know how you want to have this conversation. If you want to kind of sans LATAM and we come back to LATAM later, if we just talk about the positives at first, or can we not acknowledge the positives because of such a glaring sad thing? How do you want to talk here?
Well, I think like the idea is great, right? Like I understand there's also like there is a relatively prevalent opinion where there's a lot of people who are like, can we please have something that's VG related and not TCG related as VG players? I think the physical card is cool. I think I've always wanted more promo cards. I've thought that it would be really nice to have like top 8 regional stat promo cards, stuff like that. I think it's great. It's a great collector's piece. If you don't like it, it's probably going to be worth enough money that you could probably sell for like $100.
Right.
That's not for me, but like that's also something that's kind of nice for some people who might want to maybe reinvest it in like a regional like the next season if they don't really care about the memorabilia. But I do kind of see the point where somebody on Twitter, I think it was Hectic, was like, it'd be cool if we got like shiny Ruinous Quartet with special marks. That'd be kind of cool. Something like that might be cool. Overall, though, I'm pretty satisfied with a promo card. How do you not have the logistical infrastructure to mail out a bunch of cards to LATAM? That's the thing that like is weird to me. Like, what do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I really don't know. Like I've been trying to like wrap my head around it today, like, and I can't like speculate. I mean, like, because these promo cards are different than the ones we've gotten at Worlds, right, over the last years, because this is an Asian exclusive thing. But like, are these cards just in English? Because if they're just English, then you can mail it wherever. But if it is language based, well, is there like 6 different versions in Europe, or are all the Europe or the EU players just getting an English card of it? So maybe it's a logistics of translation and making the different language, because they still have to make their Asian versions of it, which are multiple languages, right? Like, it's not like the Asian players are no longer getting it. It's just we are, in addition to the Asian region, receiving these cards in 2025. So like, maybe that's just some of the logistical numbers, but like, I really don't know, and I don't want to like speculate too hard on why. It just feels like a bummer that LATAM is left out, especially since like, because it doesn't say Oceania is left out, right? And they're a smaller region than LATAM, but they're a championship point earning region, which is what the qualifications is. I think on my end, like the positive end of it is that 200 CP is a really nice bar to set it at, because I think there would have been a lot of people that would have rightfully so cried that, oh, you need 1,000 CP to earn this thing. It's like, oh man, now you're forcing me to go to events I don't want to, or like I'm a casual player but I want to earn this achievement and blah blah blah. Like the 200 is attainable enough for people to commit time to going and earning the championship points, but also it's not everybody. Like, we have friends that attend 6 or 7 regionals a year that don't earn 200 CP, right? Like, they go for the fun and play with friends and maybe drop in around 7 or something like that. Like, that's like me a lot of the times, right? So it's not everybody is going to get this card, so it still will feel like an achievement when you get it.
One of the things that I think is most important is that I think something like this needs to be attainable as sort of an entry-level accomplishment, something that you can accomplish on your first year on the circuit if you want to take it seriously. Because I think, especially with the new system where it's just top 75, people don't really want to play. A lot of people don't want to play an entire season just to like gear up for their Worlds push. Because like before, a lot of people will be like, all right, like bar's 500. I'm going to play a season. I don't expect to make 500 points, but I'm going to play that season to like gear up for next season's 500 points, and that's going to be like attainable. Nowadays, the bar is probably going to be like 950. Like, there's a lot of good people who are not going to make Worlds, and it can feel really overwhelming for the newer players, because it feels like what are you even playing for if you can't qualify for Worlds and there's nothing else? So 200 feels like a good accomplishment. It gets you the experience of going to a couple regionals if you want to attain those points at majors, and then it can motivate people to play a little bit. And then if they're doing well, like, oh, like I got to a win in at that regional. Maybe I can like go a little bit harder for the end of the season. And they make a day 2. And then they're like, okay, you know what? Maybe I can make a Worlds push. Like, it's just something to give a little bit more justification to players who are getting into the circuit, that maybe the time investment is worth it for them. I think 200 is a really good bar because it's something you could theoretically get just by playing locals. Maximum is 260. But it's also like really hard to get that playing local. So you're probably going to have to go to like a regional or something. So I think that's great. I think it's a really good bar. We have friends who, like you said, like are, you go and you play and you like go and you have fun. You're not really pushing a Worlds invite. some of those people could actually like feasibly be like, you know what? No, I'm going to push a little harder just to get my ace trainer status because it's cool. Who doesn't like a cool little promo card, a little trophy that said like I was one of the better players on the Pokemon circuit that year? I think it's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I've always resonated with the ace trainer like whatever NPC archetype, whatever you call them, like hiker and youngster and whatever. Like whenever you do those create a character, create a avatars, you have to choose a trainer class. I always did ace trainer because those were the people that were committed to battling Pokemon competitively. Like that is us. So I think calling it the ace trainer rewards program is a really, really awesome flavor to the program. And overall, hopefully fingers crossed it can get fixed for the LATAM region at a certain point. But what I think should be really interesting, because that statement doesn't say you can only earn one. So for like the Jake Mullers of the world, the triple threats out there, where Jake has earned VGC, TCG, and Go championship points this season, do you think somebody can try to trifecta this and get 200 CP in 3 different games, and will you receive 3 ace trainer cards?
I don't know if you will, but you should. That's so cool. No, seriously though.
Right? That would be awesome.
So cool. Like I have a friend, Craig, he's been on stream. He's played me on stream at Indianapolis last year. He's a really good VGC player. He's not going to enough events to make Worlds this year. He's not really making a Worlds push, but he plays TCG at some locals. He could feasibly get 2 cards. Why not? Doesn't hurt. I think that's super cool. And like players like Jake Muller could be like, you know what, Nate? Like Jake's qualified for Worlds. I don't know how many times. Jake's done really well in all 3 games. Why not? Like, maybe Jake wants a challenge, and he's like, you know what? It'd be kind of cool to see if I can get all 3 in one season. Like that sounds like an awesome idea. I think that they should absolutely allow that.
Yeah. So Pikachu, if you're listening, which who knows, if you're a little busy right now, I understand. If you're listening, definitely like incentivize players, like, because right now I feel like I'm kind of loopholing it. Like, well, a dog can't play. It doesn't say a dog can't play basketball. Like, it doesn't say I can't earn 3 ace trainer cards. Like, put it in there in bold text. Like, you're trying to challenge your player base, right? You want them to feel rewarded for investing in the circuit. Be like, be the first person to earn 3 ace trainer cards in the same season or something like that.
Do a news post when somebody earns the first triple thing.
Exactly.
Like, platform them a little bit. Give them a tweet on the Play Pokemon account. That'd be awesome. Do like a B-roll little interview with them for the downtime
100%.
of regionals. That'd be so cool.
And the best part is I'm thinking for production's sake, you could run that interview on all 3 streams.
Yeah.
Because it's relevant to all 3 streams. They should just hire us, Stefan. You know what I mean? We figured it out.
For real. We would fix everything.
All right. We got one last topic before the end of the pod here, and that is on the announcement of the spectator badges and for the whole weekends, everything for the World Championships this summer in Anaheim. And I think the days of conversations of being upset that Worlds isn't free anymore, that's over. We can't really have that conversation.
Yeah.
It's just not the world we live in anymore. The difference is that now a full weekend spectator pass costs $100. So it's like you're going to Disneyland without going to Disneyland. You're getting it. You're just spending $100 to have access to spend $1,000 at the Pokemon Center at Worlds at this point. So what are your thoughts here? Because obviously it can't be free. It was $10 in London. It was $40 last year. It's now $100. There's got to be some happy medium place, do you think? With how big Worlds is getting, 100 makes sense because it is more convention-like. There's going to be panels. There's going to be exclusive merch. There always is exclusive merch and content and things. So do you understand their position as to why it's $100 for a 3-day pass, or does that number need to be knocked down?
100 is big. I think it's made worse by the fact that, like you said, it was 40 last year.
Yeah.
And it was 10 the year before. Like, we went 10x in 2 years. That's crazy. Like, I think it's very understandable that the fan base looks at that and goes, whoa! Like, that's a crazy increase. Like $100 for like a what is essentially a full convention. It could be reasonable. Depends a little bit on what exactly you're getting out of it. I don't think it's inherently unreasonable, but I think the fact that the additional context of how much more expensive it is than last year makes it feel significantly less reasonable. And I think that's maybe something that they should have scaled up a little bit slower, because especially like if you do it over a longer period of time, you can actually have more things to point at where you're like, well, look, this is what we did that year. We didn't do that the year before. And then we added this, and then we added this, and then we added this. So you can see like the increase in the quality of like what you're actually getting. Like that might be a little bit easier to stomach. And maybe they add a ton of stuff and it's totally worth it. But without seeing it makes it a little bit hard, because like, I'm not going to like, I'm a competitor. I don't see a lot of this extra stuff. Like it's not really what I'm focused on. But from what I saw, Hawaii seemed to have less stuff than Yokohama, and it didn't like the stuff they had at Hawaii did not seem like $100 of value to me. So like this is a bigger venue. It's Anaheim. It's probably a lot easier to get more people in there for like various panels, various activities. It could be really, really cool, but I understand the hesitation from the community.
Yeah, and I think you worded perfectly there that, in my opinion, the $100 for a spectator pass for the whole weekend, all access, like one day is $40 and the whole weekend's $100. So in theory, you're saving money, right? It could be valuable depending on what is available in the event, right? So like you say, oh, you go to other conventions, you spend $100. Like I know I spend, I think it's like $200 or something for an all access pass to New York Comic Con every year. It might be like $150 or something for the 4. I forget what it is, but like if you're gonna charge me $100 because they can charge you $100 for Comic Con, then you better damn well give me Comic Con level experience for that value. Because at Comic Con, like I met the voice actor for Goku and like took a photo with him and had a moment. Like I've met like the like showrunners of like shows that I enjoy, or like I've met artists that had incredible artwork and got their autographs for things that value of that all weekend pass at Comic-Con way exceeds the amount of money that I spent on it. And so for Pokemon, if we are trying to expand it, make it more convention, like if all it is just like a couple of little side panels and like take a photo with Pikachu and Eevee or whatever, then it's not worth $100. But like if Sarah Natichetti comes, I always mess her last name. I apologize. The voice actress for Ash and like maybe some other characters from the anime also come and do a panel or do like autograph signings and photos and things, like giving people incentives to, outside of playing or watching the streams, to spend that $100 or make it more valuable. I think that is their challenge, that they need to actually make it worthwhile for people.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there's ways that you can do that. I think like for $100, you better be including like activities and stuff as well, right? Like I think Yokohama had a ton of activities that were really, really cool. Yeah. Obviously, they went really all out because it was the first one in Japan, 25th anniversary or whatever. Like there was a lot going on for that, but like the SSN was really cool. There was a giant Pokemon Pikachu parade, like all of that stuff. Like all of that is value. Even if it's something that you're not personally interested in, like people will be interested in some of that stuff. So the more stuff you have, the better value it is. I think it's like it is more convention-y, so it's less about the competitive aspect than that. It's not just a tournament, right? It's more than that. But I think like if you're trying to sell tickets to people who are interested in the competitive games, whether it's VGC, TCG Go, it might be worth it to invest in, making people able to watch some of the games. Like maybe have more than 4 side TVs for VG. I feel like if I was a fan of VGC, I have no real reason to want to go to Worlds for $100 because I get to watch like 7 sets of Pokemon on day 1. Like I can't go around and see how my favorite player is doing because the chances of them actually being on a TV are super low. And you're not going to be able to stream all of them, obviously. But like the number of side TVs we have is like, it's a little paltry. Like it is like 4. So yeah. I don't know. I feel like they could do a little bit more in that regard because like just to market it towards the fans of the competitive game, at least. Like it's kind of harder to do for TCG, but you could have a couple tables where there's like cameras above or whatever. Like I don't know, that would be kind of nice. But yeah, it's gonna be a high bar for them to clear, and I think it would have been a little bit easier for them to clear it if they'd kind of incrementally gone up.
Yeah. I think one of the other aspects people are like having conversations about online right now is the fact that every adult must register with their own account. So there's no longer you can buy spectator passes for multiple people, which has been like an absolute staple throughout Pokemon's history. Is like, don't worry, I'll get it for all of us or whatever. Like I try to think of, you know, my mom, how would she set up a spectator pass? Like she doesn't know the Pokemon website, she doesn't know how Arcanine works or any of this stuff. Now she has to pay $100 for it, like, and she's by herself. And like, okay, so my mom gets a World's Pass, but then I don't. If we're both trying to go as spectators, like I know this is just a problem that conventions have in general when you have the amount of supply is smaller than the amount of demand that there is. Like, but I just wish that there was a way, because there will be husbands and wives, there will be brothers and cousins that want to go to Worlds, that one of them gets wins the lottery and the other doesn't. And that's a part of life, right? But like, if there was a way to like, I want my chance in the lottery contingent on if both of us win, instead of hoping that we both win the lottery or something like that. I think would be a little easier of a pill to swallow for couples and families that want to go as a unit to spectate Worlds.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, overall, we'll see. I'm sure they're going to announce things. And as I said, like $100 could absolutely be valuable enough. It just is quite the jump. It's funny. We had like the competitive, like post-COVID's, like, man, we went from free to 20 to play to 40 to play to 50 to 60 to 70. It was like, nah, we're going 40 to 100, baby.
Yeah, like they're like, okay, we went
to 65, and then we went to $66.72, and now we're at 70. Like
they're like, yeah, we did the frog in boiling water, and they got mad anyway. Let's just go all the way.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. So we'll see when spectator passes get handed out, if everyone's gonna make the cut, because I hope, we're in such a massive city, right? I hope we'll have way more spectator passes than we've had at some of the other recent events, because it's always sad if somebody wants to go to Worlds and they're not able to. But all right, Stefan, it's time to end the pod here. And how we always end every episode of OHKO is we have our question of the week from one of our listeners in our Discord. So we told everyone that you were coming on the pod today, so if they had any questions prepared, burning questions that they want to know from you, if you ever have a question for Sierra or myself that you want to know at the end of the podcast, join our Discord, linked in the description down below. And so, Stefan, this one is from Aldrich this week. It says, hello, Stefan Mott. Thank you for making me believe in Tailwind Waterspout again. I also noticed you've been traveling to a lot of Pokemon regionals, NA, EU, Canada, etc. So my question to you is, what is the best city you have traveled to for Pokemon events?
Ooh. So the hard part is that, like, if I'm doing well, I don't get to explore the city, right? I'm just gonna go with Yokohama, though, right? Like, Japan was so good. I mean, it's a little bit of a cheap answer because I also went to Osaka and also to Tokyo. So Japan as a whole was just awesome. I mean, so was Honolulu, though, right? Like, the world's locations the last 2 years have been fantastic. But if we assume that that's cheating, because
let's say Worlds doesn't count. Let's say non-Worlds location. Let's caveat.
Non-Worlds location. I really like Vancouver. Vancouver's one of my favorite spots. I think it's a really, really pretty city. I like Canada. You can get there's a really good poutine spot. I was telling Joe about it. They put kebab meat on the poutine. Oh, so good. So I'm a big fan of Vancouver, Toronto too. All the Canadian regions.
Yeah, I think that's, to me, like, I'm trying to think for my answer. Like, Toronto's in the conversation. Like, Toronto's a great city, man. Like, if we can go when it's not 3 degrees outside, that would be really nice next year if they are bringing it back. Just notes for the scheduling team: make it in, like, I don't know, September or something, or May. Toronto Regional would be a lot better, because it was in May back in the day. It was a little better weather. But like, I also think about going to Australia that one time. Like, obviously you had success in Australia. I had fun time in Australia, and like, that was the most enjoyable event that I would like never want to experience again, with like the 22 hours of flying and everything. But when you were in Australia, it was one of the most fun times I've had in my life.
True. Yeah, Australia also to me was in the doesn't count thing, just because it's Australia, right?
Yeah.
Like, but it was so great. I loved spending time with everybody there. We did some really cool things. We got to hang out. The food was great. Melbourne, especially, like they just had every type of food. It felt like crazy, awesome place. Really sad that we don't have OCIC anymore.
Yeah, I know. Rest in peace. Pouring out for them. Yeah, so I guess for my North American answer, I'll say either Toronto or Milwaukee. I am a big Milwaukee fan. That's why I had it on my mind earlier. Upcoming on the schedule in a couple of months. I do think it's a great city, especially when the summer and spring going to Milwaukee is a lot more pleasant of a time. But Stefan, that is going to do it for the pod this week. I want to thank you so much for coming on. Before we end, you gotta plug the socials here. You gotta let everyone know where to find you, how to watch your streams. You have coaching available. You have other news as well. The floor is yours, sir.
Well, thank you for having me, Joe. It's always a pleasure to hang out and chat. I love talking about Pokemon with other people who love talking about Pokemon. So always a pleasure to be on the show. Always a pleasure to hang out with you. You can follow me on Twitter at Pengy Twitch. I also have a Blue Sky. It's also Pengy Twitch. Actually, I think it's just pengy.bsky.social, but that's the socials. My Twitch is Pengy with 2 Y's, Pngyyy, because Pengy was taken, but it's great. I do offer coaching. My coaching rate is $30 an hour. I've been doing quite a lot of coaching this season. It's great. I really like talking to Pokemon about people who like talking about Pokemon. So if you're interested in that, if you need help preparing for an event, if you just want to work on your fundamentals, I really like getting people on track with positive learning habits to get the most out of your own time. Feel free to reach out. You can find my coaching link on my Twitter, or you can just reach out to me in DMs. It's also fine as well. And then finally, I actually launched a Patreon today. My Patreon is basically, I'm going to put out 1 post a week. The tier 1 folks will get access to a meta breakdown, both in writing and a video format. That'll be every 2 weeks. And then the tier 2 people will get access to those, and also a team breakdown that I'll be releasing on the off weeks. So the first team breakdown next week is going to be my Rain team. Since I'm retiring it, I am coming out with the spreads. It's time. But yeah, so that is patreon.com/PengyVGC. Lot of stuff. I'm busy these days.
You're a busy man.
Fun. It's been fun.
No, yeah, I'm so excited to hear about the Patreon. I know the coaching has been great. I know you got a lot of students performing, and it's consistent. So that's always good to hear. And yeah, I'm just so proud of you in life. You know what I mean? Over the last 5 years that we've known each other.
One of the coolest moments is one of my favorite things is hearing whatever Joe Brown is up to, especially when it's like Joe's at the Olympics. Like, huh?
Oh, crazy times. It's crazy times over here for sure,
Get me an Olympics ticket next time, buddy.
Yeah, I'll say.
Pack me in your suitcase.
I'll see what I can do there. But yeah, like we said, like we had mentioned, go follow Stefan everywhere. And if you're going to Atlanta, say hi to Stefan for me. Either give him a hug, because I won't be there to give him a hug though, so I'll feel sad.
You can give me a hug to then pass on to Joe at Milwaukee.
There we go. Transitive property. I like that. All right. Thank you everybody for watching the podcast this week. Another great episode. So back-to-back bangers. We got Wolf, then we got Stefan. Who knows? Next week might be even crazier. You're gonna have to subscribe to find out. Shout outs to Sierra earlier on. I mean, here, shout outs to Stefan. Shout outs to the OHKO community. This is the end of the podcast, and we will see you next week.